Hey, good morning, Accent Kids. Today is Tuesday, September 29th. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to review with you your notes at the top that say Causes of the Revolution, Colonists Resist Tighter Control, or Road to Revolution. These are your colonial British policies and colonial reactions. Now, you may have one of two versions of these notes. The one you're seeing on my screen begins with conflict with Native Americans and Pontiac's rebellion. The other version, I believe, begins with British rule leads to conflict under colonial identity. I'm going to take you through both of these topics, seeing as they will still be on your quiz tomorrow and test next week. And if you would like to take additional notes on it, you may. Otherwise, just follow along and feel free to pause in case you need to fill in your notes additionally. I'm sorry you did not have access to the yellow book. However, the online textbook and most online resources could have filled in this outline for you. And we'll just make sure you've got everything you need right here. As far as conflict with Native Americans goes, the Proclamation of 1763 is a response to Pontiac's rebellion. You see, Britain now recently controls all of North America east of the Mississippi River, thanks to the French and Indian War. But that land is mostly occupied by a variety of Native American nations, and English encroachment into those nations west of the Appalachian Mountains is leading to violent conflict. Pontiac is an Ottawa chief, and he unites several tribes of Native Americans against English colonists in the spring of 1763. The attacks were vicious and deadly on both sides. Pontiac is so successful that he gets the attention of King George III. The British are finally able to defeat the Native American groups and Pontiac in the fall of 1764. However, in an attempt to avoid future similar conflicts, King George passes the Proclamation of 1763, which banned colonial settlement west of the Appalachian Mountains. Colonists were really angry about the law. They believed they had the right to settle in the Ohio River Valley, in that land that they had just fought a costly and deadly war to obtain. So they felt very entitled. Thus, the law is widely ignored, and Britain struggles to enforce the law, being an ocean away. British rule leads to conflicts. Colonial identity is changing. Many colonists, we are third and fourth generation Americans by now, are beginning to identify themselves as Americans rather than British. They are British nationalists, but they are born Americans. They expected Britain to be really grateful for their assistance during the French and Indian War. Instead, Britain has increased taxes dramatically to help pay costs of the French and Indian War. One of the first tax laws Britain initiates is the Sugar Act in 1764, a law that placed a tax or duty on imported sugar products, like molasses, which is kind of like a syrup. The following year, Parliament passes the Quartering Act, 1765, a law that required colonists to quarter British soldiers, meaning you had to let the soldiers live in your home. You had to feed them, wash their clothes, provide them supplies. Very invasive of one's privacy. Also in 1765, the Stamp Act was passed, a law that required colonists to buy special stamps on all paper products. Colonists, including Patrick Henry, protested this expensive tax. So in 1766, Parliament repeals it, which means it is voided or taken back. However, at the same time, your notes may look different here, Parliament passed another law called the Declaratory Act, which states Parliament has total authority over the colonies. So even though the Stamp Act got repealed because the boycott and protesting was so effective, Parliament simultaneously passes a law that says they still have ultimate say and that the colonies must obey their laws. Make sure you've got a good definition of boycott and petition. A boycott is an organized campaign where you refuse to buy certain products, and a petition is a written request to a government. The whole purpose behind the institution of these new tax laws is to help pay costs of the French and Indian War. Britain had tried to tax the colonists without angering them, so they passed the Townshend Acts in 1767, saying that they would only tax items imported into the colonies, things like paper paint, glass, lead, or even tea, things that the colonies don't produce themselves. To enforce the Townshend Acts, Parliament used writs of assistance. These are kind of like warrants in today's language, but basically that's a court order that allowed a customs official to search a ship or a store without saying what they were searching for. Today's warrants are issued by a judge and must state what the police are looking for. But these writs of assistance did not have to say what they were looking for, just anything illegal. Make sure you've got a great summary of the Boston Massacre. Most of the Townshend Acts were repealed except the tax on tea. And on March 5th in Boston, 1770, a bunch of angry colonists, around 200, surrounded a small group of British soldiers. They were harassing them, yelling at them, throwing snowballs and oyster shells at them, and the frightened soldiers ended up firing their guns into the crowd, killing 5. The soldiers were put on trial for murder. They were defended by John Adams, like the second president of the United States, John Adams, who at the time was just a Massachusetts lawyer. He defended the soldiers in court, and only 2 were found guilty of manslaughter and had their thumb branded. So overall, he got them all off the hook. The colonists still described the Boston Massacre as a massacre, even though it wasn't very massacre-y, because the victims were not armed with guns, like the soldiers were. This is the propaganda that was published all around the colonies. The captains seemingly giving an order to fire, all of the smoke, the angry looks and all kind of evil looks on the British soldiers. The colonists look very innocent. There's a puppy in the crowd, Boston in the background. And it's, of course, titled The Bloody Massacre. This was drawn by Paul Revere and circulated everywhere. That make most colonists angry at Britain, makes the Americans seem like the innocent party, even though they were very much an unruly mob instigating the event. This just doesn't portray the chaos of the true event. In the wake of the Boston Massacre, John Adams' cousin, Sam Adams, established committees of correspondence, a system for colonial leaders to communicate and to keep in touch. They would keep each other and all of the colonies informed of the British actions. And soon, committees of correspondence were in all 13 colonies. They wrote letters and pamphlets to each other whenever Britain tried to enforce some of their more unpopular laws from Parliament. It promoted unity in the 13 colonies against Britain. And a recap, how did the colonists react to the Townshend Acts? By effectively boycotting British goods. Boycott is the most effective form of protest in this time period and event. I left this graphic at the end of your notes talking about the effects and the aftermath of the French and Indian War. I would study that. Don't forget your quiz tomorrow also includes French topics from the French and Indian War all the way through these notes that we are finishing just now. So make sure you study. That quiz will be posted in Schoology tomorrow morning. And I hope you join us to watch John Adams on the HBO series that we're watching in class today. You can watch it today and tomorrow on Zoom. I'm hosting it at 10:50 this morning. I hope you can join us. If not, and you still want to watch it, message me and I'll try and get you in this afternoon if possible. Thanks. I hope you have a good day.